There we go. So without further ado, let me introduce Wilma Smith and Carol Brown. And I think we have Frances as well. Hi, Frances. Nice to meet you. So I'll come to you first, Wilma. What is GMAC and how long have you guys been running? And if you could give us a bit of background as to GMAC in the industry.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for inviting us along today. I'm just going to try and play this, and I can't remember how I do it. How do I play it again? Where does it say play? Oh, slideshow. Here we go. Play from the start. But sorry about that. It's always the technical issues when we can always it never fails me. Anytime I go to do something, there's always a wee technical hitch. But thank you so much for inviting us along today. It's so lovely to see you all, meet you all, and answer any of your questions. A little bit about me. I'm a filmmaker, and I'm from Coatbridge, and my internet's gone a wee bit. And whenever I was about to leave school, which does really feel like 6,000 years ago, the careers officer said to me, "What is it you want to do?" I said, "I want to be a filmmaker." And he laughed in my face and he said, "Don't be so ridiculous. Who do you know that's a filmmaker? Why don't you go and be a nurse and do something a wee bit more realistic?" Now, the man actually did me a huge favour, although I'd like to think that the careers officers now have got like a bit of a different approach. But anyway, I did actually, when I did leave school, remember, and this is like mid-1990s, I went and worked in a nursing home, and it was while I was there, I nursed an old lady, and I met a relative of hers who had just started volunteering at the Glasgow Film and Video Workshop, which was the name prior to GMAC Film. So I first got introduced to GMAC in 1995. So GMAC Film was established in 1982 as a charity, and we are based in Trongate in Glasgow, and we are very much about training, talent development. We've got spaces to hire, office rooms to hire, and we've got facilities as well. And we are very much about working with and working with communities from that are from underrepresented backgrounds. And like I said, we're based in Trongate in Glasgow, and we've been championing diversity inclusion for this length of time. And just in the last few years, we've kind of expanded quite a bit. So we've now got 13, am I right in saying that? Fran and Carol, got 13 members of staff now. And we cover various programmes. So we have outreach activities. We have got a youth programme, which is for 8 to 24-year-olds. And that also includes like the BFI Academy, which runs at the weekend, and the MIA course, which runs through the week. We've got the filmmakers programme, which I lead. And within that, we run Little Pictures, which you might have heard of, which is a new talent development micro-budget short film commission. I'll talk a wee bit more about that later. And we've also got talent development within which Carol and Fran run. So Fran runs Screen Start, and she'll tell you a wee bit more about that. And Carol runs The Next Wave, which is a new project. But along with that, Carol also develops other programmes. And both Fran and Carol have got industry experience, so they'll tell you more about that as well. So as I said, we're very much about working with people from underrepresented groups and to help push them into the screen sector in Scotland and the talent pipeline. And we've also got a screening room as well. So as part of a once a month event called Cafe Flicker, which has been on the go for years and years. So it encourages like independent filmmakers who write and direct their own self-made, like DIY films, to come along. So it's almost like a kind of open mic night. And it's Gary Hewitt that runs that. And so it's the first Thursday of every month. And it's obviously we've had a bit of a delay where it's not been running due to COVID, but I think we're hoping it's going to be launching up again in person fairly soon. So you can come along and show your film and get peer support, etc. So that's kind of in a nutshell, really. I'm just going to stop sharing.
Can I just say it's lovely to see some familiar faces, just because you just showed a slide with the cast and crew from Ouija's, and they were our first speakers for this season.
Amazing. Is that who that was?
Anyway, sorry, Wilma, sorry for interrupting.
But it's really I find GMAC is a really unique place because come as a filmmaker, make my own DIY films for all these years. GMAC Film is very much about supporting the underdog filmmakers, etc. So it's been very pivotal in my own film career as well, and which I've since then went on to get commissions through Bridging the Gap with Scottish Documentary Institute, and Carol and I have just been recently commissioned to make a short film through Short Circuit, which I believe you spoke to Ira the other week there.
That's right.
Amazing, great. Well, do you want me to? Do you want me to hand you over to Carol or Frances now and get a wee bit of a breather from me, and I can come back and talk about little pictures?
Absolutely, that sounds good. Yeah.
I'm happy to jump in, Wilma, if that's all right. So yeah, it's really nice to see everyone today. As Wilma sort of said, my background actually is in the film industry, and I sort of happened to fall into GMAC last year into a development manager role, which was a bit of a turn for me, which was great. And I've got to see a lot of the sort of development side of training as well, which has been amazing. But my background basically was I went to university and studied film at the RCS, and I graduated back in 2013, and then managed to somehow make my way into the film industry through working on commercials in Scotland. And that was how I got my entry into eventually working on longer running dramas. And so I'd done that for a few years, and eventually moved down to Manchester to work on Coronation Street for a little while as their production assistant. And it was when I was there that I decided that actually, as much as I love being part of physical production, I really wanted to develop as a producer. So I actually ended up going back to do further education. And through the help of a scholarship from BAFTA, I actually went out to Los Angeles for 2 years and studied on a producing program out there. And it was when I was out there that I decided that, as much as the glamour and glitz of Hollywood is quite a pull, there was something in me that really wanted to be developing talent in Scotland and telling stories that I wanted to tell through that means. So I actually came back in 2018 and worked across the film industry in Scotland again for a few years, in amongst COVID as well, which was a crazy time. And through that, I built up a network and, started meeting more filmmakers like Wilma and such like, and developing a slate of projects. So while I've been doing that, I happened to fall into GMAC at the same time, which has been great for myself as a producer, because it gives me the means to actually pay the bills while I'm also developing those projects on the side. And I think that's something that can be quite daunting when you're going out there as a freelancer and knowing that you have an end goal, but actually you still have to be able to afford to live as well. So those are the sort of things that I had to take into consideration when I was doing that. And since starting at GMAC, we've obviously been developing a few different programs, and Frances will talk a bit about Screen Start. But one of the big ones that I'm working on at the moment is called The Next Wave, which is it's an emerging scheme for people that have been in the industry or have already got a couple of credits or some short films under their belt that are just at that stage where they're ready to take the next step, where, you know, they're going to actually start getting employed as potentially directors or, you know, junior producers, that sort of thing. And that's in collaboration with MTP, which is a commercial company in Glasgow. So we're really excited about that. We're still in the beginning process of getting that launched, but that's something that we're really looking forward to this year. And that's for producers, writers and directors. So that's something that certainly keep an eye out when you get to that stage. I don't know if I can hand over to Frances to talk a little about Screen Start, because I think that's something that's really valuable and would be quite useful to some of the students.
Thank you, absolutely.
Okay, hi everyone, to those who I can see and also those that I can't see. My name's Fran, and I've just started setting up the Screen Start programme at GMAC. So GMAC is really strong in doing youth development work and also the work that Carol's doing. But one of the things that we haven't done until, well, that's not true, it has happened in the past, but this is a new programme, is around about employability and creating that bridge between starting out and getting into the film industry. And at the moment, it really is a growth sector. There's a lot of stuff going on. And what we're finding is that producers and production companies are really struggling to fill the roles that they've got. And what they're also doubly struggling for is to meet their equality and diversity and inclusion targets. So we're the kind of natural bridge between people who are super keen on film, who come from underrepresented backgrounds, and the industry. So Screen Start is a new initiative, which it's a 6-month kind of training program, which gives people mentoring, work placements, training in the right places, and just really supporting people on an individual basis over a 6-month period, where they will receive it's kind of all wraparound support. So they get everything that they need plus a wage to be able to, take the time and get the support to get into the industry, get work ready, if you like, because it's a really demanding sector. It kind of eats people alive at times as well. I mean, I worked in it for quite a lot of years, doing short film, feature film production, short film production, as a producer, and it's quite a full-on industry. But it's also really hard for people to, if you don't know people, it's quite hard to get a start, or it traditionally has been. And there's things like, instantly, if you're applying to any role, they say, oh, you must have a driving license. So not everybody can get a driving license. Not everybody's got the financial wherewithal to kind of set themselves up with what's needed to be able to get into the industry. So we're kind of looking at all of that stuff and looking at what it is that excludes people, and finding routes around it to try and help people find their way into the business. So that's the basis of Screen Start. The time scale for it, as I say, it's new. We are hoping to be doing our recruitment over the summer to start people towards the autumn time. We're looking for 20 people from our target groups, and I'll just say our target groups are SIMD 120, so that's the top or the bottom kind of lowest socioeconomic communities in Scotland, or in Glasgow. It's a Glasgow-based programme, this. We are looking at deaf, disabled, neurodivergent, LGBTQ plus, care experienced, 50-50 gender balance as well. I forgot everybody. Have I remembered all our target groups? So we're really looking to support people who just don't normally get the start. So that's Screen Start.
And
Amazing. Thank you very much.
And I can talk a wee bit about Little Pictures, which is part of the Filmmakers programme. Now, I'm going to share my screen again, and it's only purely because I love showing off the films, because this is us going in. This will be us going into year 3 soon of Little Pictures. So I love I like showing off all these nice pictures that we've got. So Little Pictures is a new micro budget, well, it's fairly new, launched in 2020. And it's a micro budget short film commissioning scheme, and it's funded by the National Lottery through Screen Scotland and the Scottish Government. Okay. So as I said, we launched in 2020, and we, again, looking for new talent, new filmmakers who wouldn't normally get that opportunity to make their film. So it's specifically for filmmakers who are from underrepresented backgrounds. The call for submissions this year will be round about summer 2022. So keep an eye out on that. So if you're on social media like Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, keep an eye out, like the GMAC Film pages, and also just check in on our website. You can also join as a member of GMAC Film. So if you head over to the website, you can join there. So the call is, there is obviously, you have to be eligible to apply. So you must be 16 years and over. And just so you know, Little Pictures is for all ages. So one of our first filmmakers from year one was, she won't mind me saying this, was 70 years old. And it was our first commission. So as long as you're over the age of 16, you can be of any age. Based in Scotland, you must be based in Scotland. So this one isn't specifically for Glasgow based, it can be all around Scotland. So right now we've got a filmmaker from Mull, one of the islands, Mull. So all across Scotland. The one thing though, right, is that you can't be in full-time education, right? So obviously I'm aware that we're speaking to college students right now. So, you know, you've got to be finished your education. And the other criteria is that you can't already have been commissioned to have made a film before. Okay, it's fine if you've made your own do-it-yourself films, and if you've like self-funded your own films, but you can't have been commissioned before. So this is lovely Maria here that I was telling you about. So the call for submissions is we look for film proposals for films under the length of 15 minutes, and it can be of any genre. So that's fiction, documentary, animation and experimental film. And each year we commission up to 8 short films. Okay, and each commissioned film receives training and workshops and support, and they receive a mentor, so they get an industry mentor throughout the whole scheme, and you get £2,000 cash to make your film. Okay, it's round about the whole scheme usually, so it's usually 9 to 12 months the duration, so that's the commitment that you have to give. So as I say, proposals under the length of 15 minutes, and there's just some ideas of, you know, things to think about when you're submitting an idea if you want to. We're very big as well on accessibility. So if you need any help at all with any of our kind of programs, you know, we're very open to like audio and video proposals. If you ever needed help with filling out a form, like with Scriber, etc., we're very, very open to, you know, helping people with any accessibility needs. And that's just some more kind of ideas applying with your proposal. Okay, so some of the things we think about is, because it is £2,000 is not a lot of money to make a film. So, you know, you want to try and make your idea achievable within that. And obviously we've went through COVID times as well. So the first lot of filmmakers safely went through training under COVID compliance, etc., and were able to make their film during the restrictions. But that's something to think about as well. And some of the other kind of things with Little Pictures is we help team you up with a new emerging producer. As I said, you get support from an industry mentor. You would then go through training workshops, which this one says online, but we're hoping to make it a hybrid delivery this coming year. And your films would roughly go into production round about October, December, and then around March next year, we would be looking for your films to be finished. So this is kind of really for budding filmmakers out here, writers and directors that are looking to get their first commission. And as I said, the aim is a lot of these filmmakers and even the teams. So even, you know, like what Fran was talking about with Screen Starts, people behind the camera, OPs, camera assistants, sound people, etc. have really since been involved in Little Pictures, have went on to do other things. So just kind of give you an idea, and you know, if you've got any questions at all, I'm quite happy to give you my email address if you're wanting to reach out to me as well. And just to kind of reiterate, Maria, she got her first commission through Little Pictures, and since then has went on to make her first TV broadcast film.
That's
with a
incredible.
documentary that got aired last year. And lots of other filmmakers. So producer Misha McCulloch has since went on to get a Sharp Shorts. Caitlin McMullen has now went on to get a documentary commission through Bridging the Gap. Matthew Hickman has now went on to a writer's scheme called Convergence. I feel like I'm missing people out. Anna Songle has went on to do the Aardman Academy and has been commissioned a few times with some animations. So it's a really kind of an exciting opportunity. And this is Anna's film, I Miss Hugs, which did you get the chance to watch? Did you get the chance to watch I Miss Hugs? Because I think I sent it along to Maureen.
You did, yeah. I can't see if people are nodding. There we go. Thank you. Yeah. Did you guys watch the shorts? Well, the link is on Teams if you want to go back and watch it. But it's really incredible. Thank you so much for all your for the breadth of what you do and for all of that information. It sounds like you made so many sort of powerful comments and insights into from the moment, Wilma, that your career coach said, who do you know as a filmmaker? I mean, I think that's still, it's still something that I feel we're tackling to this day in a bit, even though like obviously perception has and is changing, but you still get sort of, I feel like there's a strong impulse in the industry to sort of make people understand that a career in the creative industries is a viable option if that's something that you want to explore. And I feel like GMAC falls exactly in that remit as well, especially with the accessibility and diversity agenda. So, and also it is the only, am I right in saying it is the only short film commissioning scheme in Scotland? Because it's very rare that you actually get, commissioned for a short film and get actually some money towards your short film. And that's an amazing opportunity. So how, Wilma, when you were saying you were a filmmaker, what's your background in the industry? You mentioned you were, where do we find you between leaving were you a nurse or were you a carer at some point?
I was a care assistant. So I worked there for a good couple of years full time, because I genuinely, you've got to remember, there's no internet, there's no easy way to just go and find information at that point. So I worked there for a couple of years. At that time as well, I'd been introduced to GMAC Film. So I was starting to get involved with like-minded people who just wanted to make films, etc. And, they were passionate about, driving themselves forward. So it was a really great place. It's a great way to kind of get involved, when you are kind of meeting and mixing with people that feel the same about you. And then I did go and apply to the Glasgow School of Art, and I studied fine art photography. And very much, Maureen, it was like just a drive and determination and passion with my own writing and directing. So I was doing my own DIY films, and I did for many, many years. My background is in community arts as well, so that's something I feel very passionate about, and very much ties in again with the GMAC ethos. So I did that, and I did things like cleaning houses. I was a cleaner. Sometimes I had like maybe 3. There was one time in particular, I had 4 different jobs going on in one day, and one of the jobs actually happened to be lecturing at Coatbridge College. Yeah, so I lectured there for a couple of years, maybe about 15 years ago. So it very much was a kind of a juggling balance. But for me, I think you've got to be very, very passionate and driven. And sometimes, you know, the industry, you do get I mean, any kind of job, you get knockbacks, but you've got to kind of really, you know, sometimes getting a knockback can be quite good, you know. So, yeah, so that's my kind of background.
Thank you. Carol, I'm coming to you. And just before at Student Scene, we were talking about the shortage of producers, and that's something that that I thought was amazing with what GMAC offers as well, even from Little Pictures, is that you get matched with a producer. And that's really, I feel, the first step where you're no longer an amateur filmmaker. When you have a producer, right away it elevates sort of your practice, it elevates the way you sort of experience the filmmaking process. Carol, you're a rare breed.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one, because I think you know, expectations from filmmakers of what a producer's role is can sometimes be a little bit skewed. And it wasn't actually until I went and done a master's elsewhere that I realized how important a producer's role actually is. It's not just about, you know, making sure the paperwork's done on the day and, you know, you've got lunch and everything sorted out for your crew. It's very much a creative process, and it's an extra pair of eyes that can think of things that your director or your writer might not have thought of. It's about problem solving, and you know, I always go back to this story. So Paddy Higson, who's our CEO at GMAC, you know, she received a BAFTA a few years ago, BAFTA Scotland. And when David Heyman was actually presenting the award, he said that the word no is not in Paddy's vocabulary. And basically said, you know, if you went to Paddy and asked her if you could have 10 pink elephants floating down the Clyde, Paddy would say, well, let me go and see if that's a possibility, David. I'll go and speak to the authorities and you know, all of those sort of things. And then she'd come back to David and say, I'm terribly sorry, David, I can't get you 10 pink elephants floating down the Clyde. I can get you 7 green ones floating down the Kelvin. And I think that's very much what producing is trying to problem solve and think of other creative ways that you can achieve the end goal. And I think that's why it's really important that we've got things like Little Pictures, where we introduce filmmakers to new producers and start those relationships, so that, you know, it is that collaborative process. Because at the end of the day, that's what the industry is, and you're always going to end up working with a producer further down the line. So understanding that relationship earlier is way better. So yeah, that's what I've got to say on that, really.
I love that. Thank you so much. And I believe, Fran, you're a producer as well. Did I hear that right? And do you want to talk us through your background and your approach in the industry right now?
Yes, sure. I actually started out at the RCS. Well, it wasn't the RCS way back then. It was the Royal Scottish Academy of Music and Drama, and I did stage management. And I was actually really keen on doing community theatre. So I worked with companies like 784 Theatre Company, and I went over to Belfast. I was working in Belfast doing cross community theatre, you know, in the early 90s, which was it was a volatile time over in Belfast then, and we were making really fantastic theatre and touring it around and so on. But then I actually hooked up with a director who whose vision I was really kind of passionate about working with. And he asked me to help on a couple of short films. And I said, okay, but I'm not producing, I'm just helping you, kind of thing. But it was all around the script and the story and developing ideas. And I ended up on that kind of pathway with that particular director, doing 3 short films. And then 2 feature films as well. So that was quite a long journey, and took me to, through all aspects of the industry, from doing things for no money whatsoever. Like we had 500 quid for the first film. And it was kind of cutting your cloth to suit the kind of the pennies that you had, pulling in favors. My mum was doing the cooking, and it was a bit like that. You're just kind of make it work however you can, up to proper money, and then that's a kind of different kind of negotiation altogether. And one of the things about the business is it's not particularly family friendly. I found I had my daughter, and I ended up going into making documentaries, which I've always loved documentaries anyway. So the film business kind of, as I said, it kind of consumes you, and I decided that I needed to be doing something different. I set up I was working with a bunch of people, filmmakers. We set up a collective making social justice documentaries, and it was called Camcorder Gorillas. It's still on the go. We're still making films, made a few film documentaries for telly and stuff. And then, I'm just trying to think more recently. So I was involved with Film Access Scotland doing a youth film festival. And then I went back to the RCS and was doing outreach in fair access department. So that's brought me up to the now. Yeah.
It's also worth pointing out that Frances actually was my lecturer at the RCS for a while as well.
Full circle, amazing. Do you see that changing, Frances, at the moment in the industry about it not being family friendly? Did you see any kind of will in the industry to change it? I'm asking that because the college had an event in central Glasgow for COP26, and I interviewed Charlotte Riley, the actress who set up a nursery at called Wonderworks at Warner Brothers, and it just made me feel like, you see Hope Dixon Leach with raising films, and Charlotte's logline for Wonderworks is keeping families in film. So and the whole, I'll say, feminist movement that we've seen sort of coming through in the last few years, like on the wake, I would say, of the Me Too movement. Do you see anything changing in either expectations from people coming into the industry, or productions making it work for families, like on different levels? Like, do you see a change in that way?
I think it's definitely improved from when I had my daughter, which, I mean, she's 18 now. So I think there is a change, but some of the, I mean, Carol will probably speak probably more on it than I would, but I think that certainly, I just met my neighbour who had a baby, and she's a costume designer, and her partner's an AD. She's now gone and got a normal job, and he carries on. So I think that if you have partnerships, I think it's really hard to have 2 parents in the film business. I think it is possible, and I think there is more support for women than there was, but it's still a challenge. It still is a challenge, because you're talking really long hours, and especially if you're on that kind of working and on set schedule, it's very, very demanding and very difficult, I think. But Carol, what would you add to that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I've just done an 18-month stint with Netflix before I joined GMAC, and you can see a change over the last couple of years at least. So BEC2, which is the union for film and TV people, BEC2 Vision in particularly are doing a lot of stuff on job shares, which are particularly aimed at mothers and things like that might only want to be going back to work for a couple of days a week, and it seems to be a lot of support around that area. because that's something that typically wasn't really the done thing a few years ago. You know, if you were going on to a job, you were going on to it for, you know, 5 or 6 days a week for, you know, a good stint of time, you know, for 4 or 6 months or however long the job was. And if you couldn't commit to that, you wouldn't get the job. Whereas now we've started to see that actually job share is an actual thing. And I think because there's such a shortage of crew, they're having to make it work. But even just in general, you know, like I worked with 3 different sets of production people on 3 different films. That some of them came and went. But there was, you know, if there was, say, a production coordinator who typically will be the first in the office and last to leave, if they've got kids, then there was a little bit of flexibility there where they might start a little bit later so they can take their kid to school. And they might finish a little bit earlier so they can go and pick them up, and then they'll work from home the rest of the day. Certainly in ITV, where it's more of a 9-to-5 job, if you're working in a studio situation like Coronation Street, the casting department wouldn't start before 9:30 in the morning, and they'd be finishing at 5:30 in the evening. So there is that, you know, there are still those things where it's not quite as easy to duck out early, but you know, it's a lot easier to do that on a 9-to-5 than it is when you're, you know, on a feature film that could be filming any time during the day. But definitely the support system, you need to sort of build that into your own life as well, I think. But I do see a bit of a change, which is good.
Thank you.
I was going to add as well, Carol and Fran probably agree here, that in the film industry as well, majority of people are working as freelance as well. So that's a very important factor to consider as well. You know, it's not like a full-time job.
If you're not in-house at, say, ITV, or, you know, if you're not staff on something that's long running like Coronation Street or River City or something like that, you will be freelancing. And typically until you get to a certain stage, you'll always be contracted as PAYE. So there's not a big rush to go out and get yourself, you know, self-employed status, because as soon as you rock up to a production, the production accountant's going to say, well, you need to go PAYE for this. We can't hire you self-employed until you reach, you know, a certain level. So that's something to bear in mind. It can be quite tricky when you're working freelance, because you'll work straight for, say, 4 or 5 months on a project, doing, you know, 70-hour weeks potentially, and then suddenly that stops, and the panic of when's the next job going to come up sort of sets in. I think it's really difficult to balance that feeling of being able to enjoy the time that you actually get off. I certainly struggled for the first few years, because I was always really worried that if I passed something up when an opportunity came up, that I wouldn't get another one after it. So it is a bit of juggling that and understanding your body as well, and knowing when you actually need a break, because you know, it's so busy at the moment that it'd be really easy to go from one project to the next without any break in between. And you've got to remember that you're not actually getting holidays. You're getting your holidays through your pay, so you can't actually really take a week off in the middle of a production specifically. So that those are things that you've got to keep in mind as well, that you still need to actually have a break. And as I guess as much as the pool is there to take whatever opportunity comes up, you need to also know that actually I need a break before I take the next one on. And I think that's where I got to with Netflix after 18 months of working through a pandemic, was like, you know what, now's a time to take a step back and actually do a normal working week, rather than continue to throw yourself for 70 hours a week for the next 6 months on something. Thank
you, Carol. That's I love the way you just said as well, to just listen to your body. I think that's amazing. And that's something that's also coming through here. I hear a lot of people who worked through COVID in the film and TV industry who are now crashing and going like, I just need a break. I'll come back to the skills shortage that you mentioned, because it is like sort of a running, like a red thread in all the conversations we're having on Tuesday morning. What do you guys see as areas that are impacted by a skills shortage on the film and TV industry? So we mentioned producers. I know, and we talk about production accountants a lot. Is there anything else that you guys can see?
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, do you want to jump in, Fran?
Oh yeah, I was going to say it's virtually every department is in a similar situation. I mean, across all the art department, you've got joiners and painters and plasterers. You've got in the camera department, there's assistants, there's DIT, there's all these different departments all have shortages throughout their entire, I mean, across the board. And there are kind of headline ones, which I know is like script supervisors, production assistants, line producers as well, accountants, like you say. But really, there's a shout out for people in all areas. And certainly with Screen Start, we're kind of concentrating on the craft skills. So rather than, so it would be kind of in the art department, as well as also hair, makeup, and production office staff as well. But we're not really looking to encourage necessarily writers, directors, producers, because that's a different kind of negotiation. We're looking at kind of trying to reach out for crew members as much as anything. But Carol, have you got?
Yeah, I would say keep an eye out on Screen Skills as well. So Screen Skills are based in London, but they cover, or are meant to cover, the whole of the UK. And they will start to see where there's shortages in certain departments, and they will then start to focus a lot of their training on making sure that they're, encouraging applicants to train in those departments so that they've got people to fill that gap. In 2015, there was a shortage of assistant production coordinators. So I ended up on training, free training actually, on 2 weeks run by Screen Skills to get my level of, I guess, experience to that stage where I could be taking on those jobs. So that's one to sort of keep an eye out, because they will sort of focus a lot of their training on where they see the shortages. But like Fran said, I've been speaking to a lot of people in the industry as well at the moment, and there's just a shortage across the whole because it's so busy, and that doesn't seem to be letting up at all. Locations departments can't get locations assistants, and those sort of jobs do require things like a driver's license and things like that, because it's so active and they need to be able to get around easily. And so as soon as you've got something where there's a requirement for a certain skill like that, suddenly you can't actually get people. So those are the sort of things that I'd be looking at. But definitely take a look at Screen Skills as well, because there's a lot of handy free training on their website that you'll be able to access once you're not a student. And certainly go and do the COVID training that they offer, because every single person in the industry that I've met has had to go and do the Screen Skills COVID training just to be on a production. So yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. Thank you. Is there, so once our students graduate, is there a central resource where they should make sure that they feature to be able to get work? Do you know what I mean? Like, is there anything like that going in Scotland?
Well, I mean, Frances can jump in as well, and certainly Wilma. In Scotland, we have FilmBang, which is obviously, it's now an online resource where you can, submit your CV, and people that are, productions that are coming into Scotland, they may look at FilmBang to see who's available and things like that. Typically, if I'm on a production and I'm looking for trainees in specific areas, I will look at places like GMAC or Hit the Ground Running and things like that, and I'll be calling them to suggest people that have come through their programs. So, and Frances will probably be in the same boat very shortly. Once Screen Start gets up and running, we'll probably, people in the industry will be calling Frances to say who's in your cohort this year that could potentially come out onto production. Fran, do you want to jump in?
Well, the other thing I was going to mention was about the Facebook groups that are out there, and there's like I'm not sure of the exact names, but it's Film and Television Scotland or Crew Scotland, and there's actors and crew. I'm not. You might know the names of them better than me, but people post on there. They say if they've got a film production and getting experience. is just really invaluable. So you're learning, you know, and I would say to kind of keep on track with those Facebook groups, which I can't give you the names of. What I could do is send them to you. I can look them up afterwards and send them a wee list of what would be, I think, good groups to keep your eye on.
Oh, fabulous. Thank you very much.
I was just going to say as well, I think as well, just with my own experience with being studying, etc., and, you know, being at Coatbridge College, I also studied, taught at Cali Uni as well. When you leave an education setting, it's okay to kind of feel a bit, I think this is a really important thing actually, that it's okay to kind of feel a bit like, what do I do next? And to give yourself that little bit of breathing space. You know, that you might not get something immediately, but what to do is my kind of tip being is like really try and discipline yourself every day. You know, that you are kind of, see, just like what Fran's saying, checking out those Facebook pages, having a look at screen skills, updating yourself all the time, try and get yourself into that discipline every day. I always say it's a little bit like, you know, how the doctors recommend that we exercise for 30 minutes each day in order to be, you know, healthy, etc. And I think that's the same kind of applies, especially when you're kind of involved in the kind of creative industries, is to keep that creative discipline going. And that, you know, if you can do that 30 minutes every day, you know, stretch it out to an hour if you can, but, you know, be really proactive. Being proactive is a big key thing, getting yourself out there and getting involved, you know, just like what Fran was saying, getting involved with getting experience. So if somebody is making a DIY film, can you spare a day to help them out, or a weekend to get involved in the film production? You know, that really helps.
And the other thing I was going to add is, one of the things that's been absolutely brilliant about lockdown is the amount of online opportunities that there are, like training, talks, like, you know, I know Glasgow Film Festival has got a lot of their contents now online as well. And I think we've entered this new hybrid world where, you know, you can see people in different parts of the world telling you what an AD does or what a, you know, so that is out there. So, and you will find that by like staying in touch with, like, I mean, honestly, join up with GMAC Film as a member, so you'll get updates. Beck 2 Vision's a really good resource. Screen Skills is a great resource. And then like all the Facebook groups and stuff, but just kind of taking up those opportunities to learn, and you get a sense of how the, you know, the sector or the industry, and being inspired by people who are just doing it anyway. I think that's just so valuable, really.
Yeah. And it's making those connections as well, isn't it?
Yeah, I was going to say, you know, like there will probably be people on this call today that want to direct or want to write or want to produce, and that's fantastic. I think having that goal's amazing. You know, I've been out of, since my undergrad, I've been out for 9 years, and this is the first year that I've actually been commissioned to make a short film. So it's taken me 9 years to get to that stage. But in between then, you know, I've had to pay the bills and I've had to network. So actually having that end goal is fantastic, but you've also got to remember that it's not just all about getting to that stage. Like, how are you going to get there? And for me, that was embedding myself into the production office and making, you know, a network through that, so that when I get to the stage of making that short film, I've got people in the industry that are there to support me as well. And, you know, I think that sometimes people can undervalue that. And, you know, just because you're in an entry level position as a runner or a camera trainee or whatever, that can all be so beneficial in the long run to you. You know, we had John McPhail in at GMAC last night. For those that don't know who John is, you know, John's a director who done Anna and Apocalypse, and he started out as a camera trainee, you know, and when he was making those low budget or micro budget feature films like Where Do We Go From Here, he was using all of that network that he'd made as a camera trainee to help him get that first feature made. So yeah, that's my take on it, really.
Love it. Thank you so much. So you just mentioned Glasgow Film Festival. We know there's an industry sort of range of dates and events happening, and Short Circuit are going to be there. Are you guys going to be there too? Can we see GMAC at the industry event?
I'm going to be floating about for sure. We actually have an event which is not in the industry program. Wilma's got an event at the festival, but we've got an event called Diversity in Film, which is encouraging, or it's for leaders of the Black, Asian, and ethnic community. So careers advisors, and it's about giving people the information from those communities and on what the opportunities are. So we've got that on the 10th of March, but I know Wilma's got something.
Yeah, we've got the year 1 film screening of Little Pictures on the 6th of March as part of the industry programme.
Wonderful.
And I'll also be floating about as well. So if you are at the Glasgow Film Festival at all and you see myself, you know,
Yeah, come and say hi.
Come speak to us.
Yeah, please do. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. The last question, I guess, I would ask would be, what are the challenges that you see at the moment, either in people trying to come, I guess, yeah, what's the most common barrier to people coming into the film industry that you can see?
I can kick that off if you want, Fran.
Cool.
So for me, I also lecture at the RCS in production, and I get a lot of students that are starting out, and they see, or they have this idea of where they're going into the industry, and they'll call themselves a director of photography, or they'll call themselves a director or a producer. And in actual fact, as much as they are in their own right, you know, when they're doing their own short films and things like that, they tend not to get taken seriously when they hand their CV into production with the title director or DOP at the top of their CV. And I think, you know, that can be a big barrier, because no one's actually told them that, well, you don't have the experience yet to call yourself that. And actually what you're going to probably be going into the industry is at an entry level position, and you're going to have to try and work your way up. So I think, you know, being realistic about where you see yourself in the industry when you're first starting out is really important. And with the training schemes as well, you know, like Screen Skills has Trainee Finder, and, you know, Outlander trainee scheme. These schemes are highly competitive. They'll have thousands of applicants. And I would say 90% of those applicants don't even make the cut, because they don't have any relevant experience at all. So, you know, if you're applying to do something like Outlander, you know, they're wanting to see that you've already got a credit in something, or even just daily work, you know, on a production. So I think some students can get disheartened by that, because they've been applying for things like that and they're getting knocked back continuously. And it's because that they might actually have to go out and find something a bit smaller first to start out in. So find a commercial company in Glasgow or Edinburgh or wherever that is, you know, needs dailies to come in to help them out on a few commercials, and build up that relationship and that network there, so that you can start getting those credits and that experience, and then go and apply for things like Trainee Finder and Outlander, and you'll probably find that you start to make the top 10%, and actually you're getting your CV seen by the people that need to see it. Certainly going and trying to get a driver's license will definitely benefit you as well. I think that's a big hindrance to people, although it's changing slightly. Those that have a driver's license will probably be prioritized, simply because, you know, if we're, you know, Scotland's such a big place, and it's quite remote as well in places, that just because something starts in Glasgow doesn't mean it's going to film in Glasgow the whole time. And you have to have the means to be able to get to wherever they're going to be, you know, whether it's in the Highlands for a week or wherever. So, you know, they are going to prioritize those people that they don't have to worry about how they're getting to set each day. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with all of that, of what Carol said. I mean, I feel that the challenge is around, it's almost for the business though. It's not very inclusive in terms of human qualities that we have in terms of looking after yourself. I think looking after yourself is a huge thing. If you really are serious about going into the film business on a production level, I think that you need to kind of think carefully about what you have capacity to give, because it'll take it all. And I think there's something around self-care that I think is really important. And the other thing I would say that I don't know all your students here, if there's people who aspire to be filmmakers, I would be like, make things, play about, you know, I would say that practicing your craft is a really positive thing to do, and think about self-care. Those are the kind of two bits of advice. I mean, the challenges are the industry does, I mean, yeah, there are opportunities, but getting yourself to be work ready and understanding what the needs of the industry are, and kind of steeling yourself for it, I would say, and steeling yourself in with keeping self-care in mind. That was what I would say.
Thank you. I love that. Thanks, Fran. Wilma, any?
Again, I could totally agree with like Carol and Fran. I think as well, just kind of tapping into my own experience with it. Exactly what Fran's saying, be creative. If you are wanting to kind of write and make your films, you've got to give yourself that, set yourself that discipline, become disciplined in doing that, and try and do it each day. Again, just like what I said, you know how many people, if you take it back to fitness, they say, oh, I'll go to the gym tomorrow, and then 3 months down the line, they're saying, oh, I'm cancelling my gym membership. Why? Because I'm never there. So it's the same with being creative. I would say as well, the challenge as well is when you're starting off, is having that kind of being realistic that you might have to have, like just myself, being a cleaner, cleaning people's houses, cleaning offices, etc. You might have to be able to juggle doing a job that you, as a part-time or whatever, you might have to juggle doing that as well as trying to get your foot in the door doing trainee work, etc. Do you understand what I mean? And there's nothing wrong with that either. I always do say that whenever I was cleaning houses, because I was in that nice little zone where no one was bothering me, where I actually ended up having some of my best creative ideas while I was cleaning, while I was mopping up somebody's floor. Do you know what I mean? So there's real great positives that you can take from that.
Amazing. Well, ladies, that's our hour gone, and it's gone so quickly. Thank you so much for your time and for your nuggets of wisdom. With every speaker that we bring in, we get a clearer picture of what it's like out there. So thank you so much. Yeah, well, thank you and have a wonderful day, everyone.
Thank you very much for inviting us along today.
Thank
Pleasure.
you.
Thank you. Have a great Tuesday.
Thank you very much.